Alex, you are on the line with myself, Christy, as well as Amberly and Sinn. What's on your mind tonight?
Hello.
Howdy. What can we do for you?
Pretty much the way the call screener talked to me is pretty much the way that my previous relationship went could actually project towards most issues we have in society today. So I'm going to give you a really, really, really brief kind of, go around the previous relationship. Just so
so you can. I'll definitely let you kind of walk us through your thinking. But real quickly, can you just kind of let us know what your question is or where we're headed here?
Basically, the question I asked, right, is it possible for atheists and theists to be in a relationship?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. Why is that on your mind? I didn't mean to interrupt you. I get that you wanted to kind of walk us through something quickly, if you would.
Basically, relationship I had. I was born in Russia, right? Mm-hmm. We moved here in '95 when I was 5 years old, right? So I never felt like I belonged, right? So after the military service, right, I've tried kind of having a relationship with a girl that was Jewish and a believer. Mm-hmm. And one of her kind of, normal points was, just convert. And I had no problem with that because I, as an atheist, don't really care what is stated in my, ID or whatever.
Sure.
Just convert.
But
yeah, it's easy.
If you look at it realistically, right? If you look at it realistically, right? Your beliefs don't change based on what is written in your passport, right? So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what is written on any document, right?
Well, certainly not on a document, but I think, that your initial question was a little bit more nuanced.
That's what I'm getting at.
Fair to say.
So I'm a cultural Jew, meaning we do the Jewish thing. We don't believe in a deity. I just grew up that way, and Jews actually, depending upon the segmentation, have wonderful community. Not saying that atheists can't have a wonderful community either, but they tend to have great community in the part of the world I am easier to find. But the most Jews that I know, unless we're talking Orthodox, so I'd have to ask what type of Jew she is. They're actually pretty cool with people not believing.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah. Is she like super Orthodox or?
No. That's where I'm heading because my mother is Catholic, strictly Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the household I grew up in. So basically, the reason I went for the entire, when you do what you call Israel and Aliyah, right? When you come to the country and you go through the process of actually trying to convert to Judaism, right? You have to go through these classes, right? And the teacher in these classes made no sense to me whatsoever in anything he told me, because that sounded like preaching. That didn't sound like it's coming from a pure place,
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a problem with religion.
That's kind of the thing that you're walking into here, which begs the question. I'm not going to tell you that it's wrong or immoral or unethical or impossible or unhealthy or any of those kind of labels to be in a relationship with somebody who has a different value system than you. I will say that it can be tricky, and your values and your religious beliefs don't necessarily need to be identical. I mean, just look at, the U.S. Congress for proof of that. But it does kind of raise the question, are you wanting to be in a relationship with somebody who perhaps has a different worldview than you?
Yeah, there's a commenter in the YouTube chat that says Scoots Monkey. He said it doesn't change your beliefs, but the idea that someone would make you do that is indicative of a larger problem. And I think that's more the thing.
Worth raising, yeah.
To me, that's the thing as well, is kind of like, I mean, I feel like it kind of has to do with what's your tolerance level, and, feeling that judgment throughout your relationship, kind of, and like how much of that are you willing to sort of tolerate from the person that, is supposed to love you and stuff, without judgment.
And where does that end at? Because if you bend on this, what are they going to ask you to bend on next?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Can I put my 2 cents in, please?
Oh,
of course.
Okay. So I don't see it as the entire process. I don't see it as being wrong. I just see it as being wrong for me.
Sure.
As a person, right?
Yeah, of course.
It makes no sense for me to judge others about their processes or whatever, right? So the way I saw it, coming into those classes when it was clear for me, right? I could be wrong, but for me it was clear indoctrination about doing this, and other, right? So it made no sense to me to kind of confine to this way of life just because this is what is necessary for me to have a healthy relationship. So I left that relationship, and pretty much this is the start of the question. That is, it's not just theists and atheists. I'm pretty sure that this situation can reside with a lot of people in terms of a lot of feelings and kind of the way they feel about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the point I was getting to.
Yeah, no, I do think that you have permission to do whatever you want to do here. If you had decided to go through that class, if you had decided to go through a particular ceremony or whatever else, that's totally valid, and you have that right. But I'm not shocked to find that you felt like this was not only an uncomfortable process, but it sounds like something of a deal breaker, because it's one thing to go through the class. It's one thing to pay some lip service and to do what you're supposed to do, to be accepted by the family or to honor tradition. And there are a lot of cultural elements to religion. And if you want to play along with some of those things, okay, it's not a blank check. You do have some moral responsibility to be thinking about the version of you that you present to the world and the version of you that exists in documents and these kinds of things. But okay, if you want to go through with this, that's totally your right. But I'm not surprised to find that eventually you got to the idea that perhaps the two of you don't line up in your values. If she is sincerely believing these ideas that you personally just reject. I mean, is that ultimately the summary of things? Is that the two of you just had different worldviews and those felt irreconcilable?
Well, basically, the way I look at it, right, is let's solve issues now so we don't have a headache in the future. So what that means basically is, if me and a spouse or a girlfriend or whatever disagree on something fundamental to both of us, it makes no sense for us to keep a relationship going when we know that in 5 or 10 years this is going to be something detrimental that is going to hurt, the children and us and the families and the entire, the way that the world is built, right? Basically the fact that pretty much almost 50% of couple divorce, that's the reason, because they don't think before they, put on the ring that we have fundamental disagreements which we cannot solve. Because when you get to, at least for me, right, when you get to late 20s, 30s, right, your mental kind of ideas are solidified. So changing those,
More solid, sure. Yeah, and I hear your point, and I apologize for cutting you off, but I think
yeah,
it is valid to say that, yeah, you don't necessarily want to be unequally yoked, to borrow
Right.
that language, and you do want to be in a committed relationship with somebody who more or less lines up with your values. Now, like I said at the very beginning, your religious beliefs or your superstitious beliefs or these different kinds of things, they don't necessarily line up with your values. And so, I am always shy about bringing this up in any of my atheist work, but my partner has a very kind of loose and nebulous, sort of agnostic notion of the possibility of a God. But she also is very passionate about reading my horoscope to me on a weekly basis. And I always kind of laugh and I always kind of smile. The thing of it is I don't know that she sincerely believes these things, but I know that she has a good time with it.
Yeah,
But
she has fun with it.
yeah,
I was gonna say, sorry.
I'm sorry, Emerly, you go first.
I don't mind.
The only thing that shows is you're a lucky guy.
Well, just to say that when we get into a voting booth, we line up. When we are raising a child together, our values line up. When we are making important financial decisions, or when we are passing by someone who is experiencing homelessness, or any of these other things that matter to us, we're totally on the same page. And
that's kind of like what, if I can butt in real quick here, is that, for me, like, I know the things that are important to me in relationships for sure. So, I would say I met my husband, and then our very second time hanging out, I asked those big questions. I said, do you believe in God? What's your sort of political alignment? Because those are things that are fundamental to my existence. And if I don't line up on those particular values, like, it's not going to work. Now, maybe it'll work for, the first year where you've got all those lovely chemicals like rushing through your brain. But at some point you're going to hit that wall where you just can't stand it anymore. And especially when it comes to religious beliefs, it's like, if you were going to scramble your DNA with this person and make children, what happens then? How do you raise your children as far as like spiritual beliefs? And I feel like that is almost impossible. I know there are couples who do it, and they are just saints, for lack of a better word. But I think for most people, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think for most people, it's too much. It's too much to overcome.
That is kind of the way I look at it, because my atheism did not come, from a day or a month or a week or a year. My atheism became solidified just because I was raised in a Catholic household.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, read the Bible. It'll make you an atheist.
It'll make you an atheist real quick. And that's important. I listen to atheist podcasts with my partner. He is like taking care of the kiddo tonight while I do this shit with you fine folks. And, obviously she supports me in this mission, and she supports me in these values. And we, I don't mean to overstress the distinction in our faith, so to speak, because we actually do line up like 95% of things. But even in relationships where that's not the case, it's not the window dressing, it's not the songs that you sing or the necklaces that you wear or those things that make a relationship or break a relationship. It's what the like values that you hold and the morality and where that morality is derived from and these kinds of things. So I'm sorry to hear that this relationship didn't work out for you, Alex, but I am glad that you took it seriously, that you didn't just sort of like give lip service and blow it off and then find yourself 10 years down the road in a commitment that you weren't able to honor. So good on you for taking this all very seriously, for being transparent, and for ultimately making a decision that it sounds like is going to be better service to both of you. And then again, for just giving us a call tonight and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, same. Oh, I was going to add, me and my partner actually have a divergence of views, but like not that bad. Funnily enough, every time I come on here, because she's the one that found the Atheist Community of Austin, and then I started listening to her. I was actually Christian when we first like.
Ooh.
I know it didn't last long once I started hearing Matt Dillahunty. But and then I dove. It's just funny every time I come on here. She's like, "Why am I not the one on there? I'm more atheist than you." And so I lived like strictly like fuck all religions for quite a long time. And then like, but I still missed the community and some aspects of stuff. And then I was like, well, I really did like this one Jewish segmentation that I grew up at. We had 3 or 4 years of that. And I was like, I like that. Let me see if I can find that near us. Let me see if they're accepting of a lesbian couple where my wife is trans, a sex worker. I literally just laid it all out for them. I gave them every reason to hate me. And they were like, we're just surprised Jews are still around and show up. And I was like, awesome. I can do this. Yeah. And then I was like, I still don't believe in a sky daddy, but I do like their traditions. And they're like, we don't care. And I was like, oh, this worked. So I have more of a faith stuff that I can't let go of, but it's articulated to my wife. My wife is fine with it. As Christy said, when it comes down to the children's, like we agree on how to raise them. We go to the voting booth. We vote for the same people. There's no divergence in our relationship. And when it comes to going to synagogue, when it comes to going to Rosh Hashanah celebrations and stuff, she can go or not. I don't give 3 shits. She usually goes because it's fucking fun. But I don't know if I could be in a relationship where I'm like, listen here, Shabbat is coming up. What you gonna do? I don't know if I could be in that.
Well, it's interesting that you said, Amberly, that you said, that you were Christian and then you kind of, saw the light. And right after that is when you were like, fuck all religions for a while. I feel like when I reached the age of reason, I was about 13. And so all of my adolescence into even like early adulthood, I was also like, fuck all religions in the sense of like almost being aggressive against it.
The angry atheist phase and the teenage rebellion phase at the same time is where all good punk rock comes from.
Exactly. So, and I think it's just something you kind of have to go through, but I think then you mature in just being a human and also like the things you think about and all of this stuff. And you're just kind of like, as long as you keep your religion like out of my life and it works for you and you're not hurting other people and you're not kicking your children out of the house and this sort of thing, then it's great. It's fine. It's good for you. I might have thoughts about it or whatever, but just don't fucking hurt other people and it's fine. So I think it's almost like, you just sort of, you find that place in adulthood.
Exactly. 100%.
Can I give like a closing statement?
Yeah, absolutely. What are your final thoughts for the night, Alex?
Well, the way I see it, right, is as human beings, we're given instincts, right? So the way I see it, if something feels wrong, don't do it. If something feels right, do it. We're given instincts for a reason. The only reason we survive as a species is because of instinct. So
No.
that's
Well,
how
I
I
definitely
see it.
appreciate that message. I'm gonna let you go for the night and take a moment to respond to that. But I really do appreciate you giving us a call.
Have a nice evening.
Go ahead. Have a nice day, guys.
Thanks,
All right.
Alex.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I don't mean to kick him off and then knock down everything he said, but I guess I'll just say very briefly, I don't know that we're given instincts. And I have mentioned on the show before that I worry often about the way that we relate to our bodies in these kinds of ways. There's absolutely value in listening to your body's natural reactions. If you walk into a room and all of a sudden catch a vibe, if you feel a door close and you feel unsafe all of a sudden, I mean, that neuroception is something we've talked about on this show before, and it's important. It is worth listening to, but don't
Definitely.
obey it. You know,
Yeah.
you should listen but not obey. The metaphor I love to use is open heart surgery. You know, we can all agree if we're going to put like a moral value on the incredible scientific miracle that is our ability to take a human heart out of a dead body and to implant it and provide life to somebody who would otherwise no longer be here. That is absolutely miraculous. If I was forced to watch somebody perform
200%.
an open heart surgery, I would probably puke and or pass out. And that physical reaction is not a good indicator of morality. It's something worth considering, but it's not
Right.
a like end all be all. And I want to be just mindful about holding that out as some sort of like given to us barometer that is somehow magically able to help us define right and wrong.
No. And I want to say too, I want to add that like it's very, very subjective, just like morality. So, you know, when you can say like, if it feels good, do it. Well, something that feels good for me might be illegal, or it might not feel good for someone else and make them hurt somehow, or, you know, whatever. Just thinking along those lines, you know, like
it feels good. It feels good to be naked.
Yeah.
Love it.
But
It
you should
feels
probably
amazing.
be mindful.
You should be mindful where you are naked.
Where
Yeah, I
you are
mean,
naked.
even things like anger and violence and aggression. I mean, we could get into the work of Marshall Rosenberg and talk about nonviolent communication and all of these kinds of things, or even just animal behaviorism. If you lock a puppy up at a young age, they're going to bark and bark and bark. And even though that bark is meant to express distress, we know that eventually it starts to become a soothing behavior. It starts to feel good, that being miserable can feel good, that being depressed or being angry in a certain way can start to feel good. But that's maybe a distortion of what we would otherwise understand to be like a healthy experience of things. So I know this is a little bit of a digression, but it feels like a really important point to kind of highlight and be reminded of.
100%.
Agree.
Cool.